And if anyone's got any questions, now's a good time to ask them, I guess.
Rob, there's just a question. I think you've answered it in your summary, but I'll ask it anyway. Questions coming from Paul Costello. So Paul Costello would be working with assistant referees all the time. Do you ask for input from assistant referees only when asked for, or do they volunteer information? What's your approach there, please?
I'll be honest with you, Trevor. It probably depends, as daft as it sounds, on the assistants and whether they're people that you've worked with before and you know what you're getting. Depends on the input, on the actual decision it is. So if it's something that you've clearly got a hold of, you don't need further information, I'd be specific in my instructions about what I'm asking for and when I would need that input. So there's times when you really do need help, and you can normally tell that through body language if someone looks unsure. And there's times when quite clearly you look like you've got all the answers because they've taken decisive action in what they're doing. And I think as long as you're specific in asking for the points when you want it, it's then about thinking about how you get that information in the way you want it. And I think you're right. I think we've probably sort of covered it, but it's knowing exactly what you want from the guys that you're working with. And I use guys to cover guys and girls, but it's just one of them terms. Knowing what you want is a key thing. Being able to communicate that to your team is another. And I think the best referees get the best out of their team, whether that is, like I say, subtle signals, whether that's talking on the comms, whether that's buzzing and pulling someone across. It's getting the best out of people. Okay,
you must have sent a lot of brown envelopes across the sea here, because you're getting a lot of credit here. Brilliant webinar, thanks, Rob. There's a question in here. This is from Ben Shepherd. Ben Shepherd is one of our academy referees. Any advice for a young official only starting out in their career? And I also said brilliant webinar. He must have got the brown envelope. You know, obviously you talked about starting when you're 14, so 20 years. But Ben is only starting out. He's only done a handful of games. Any advice for him?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say, I say it all the time, is believe in yourself. I think because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. The support from your county FAs and the FA and all them different bits and bobs is fantastic. But if you don't support yourself through, one, knowing the laws of the game, two, preparing yourself right, three, actually having that mental belief, you won't go anywhere. It's all about, this is every walk of life. I genuinely believe you can achieve whatever you want to achieve if you put your mind to it. I started refereeing. I was never intending on actually refereeing. I did the course to shut my uncle up, who was a referee. And I ended up getting into it to sort of placate him and my dad, because by that point I'd realised I wasn't going to be a player. And I did it with no intention of doing it. But by the time I got to about 15, I'd made my mind up in my head, right, I want to be a professional. I want to be a Premier League referee. This is what I want to do. And I used to say it to myself all the time. It was one of them things that it was like constant going over it in my own head and visualizing what it would look like, what the success looked like, setting goals, thinking about where the end product is. And I think if you don't believe in that from the beginning, no one else is going to believe in you. So believe in yourself and go for it, mate, because there's opportunities there for everyone. It's a growing industry, refereeing.
Okay. Yeah, great, Rob. Just a couple of other points. You've touched on the issue about, this is Arling. So you were there, Arling. Where were you when I was looking for you in my time of need? Where were you?
No comment.
Thanks, Rob. Great webinar. You've actually touched on why you actually started refereeing at 14 to a degree, because you weren't much of a player, or I'm a paraphrasing you wrong.
Well, I was okay. I wouldn't have made it professional. I'd have only played non-league. So it was, for me, I'd made a decision that I had more chance refereeing. And to be honest, I was serving a ban at the point when I started refereeing. Trev, I got banned playing for scrapping. And after that, that's not something that many people know. So keep that between us guys and girls on the call. But yeah, that sort of forced my hand a little bit as well after I'd done the course. We'll keep that one. Okay. The question I want to ask you, I'm not going to ask you the question that's here with regards to VAR, because the answer in terms of your instructions is quite clear. The question is, would you still go against your initial instinct and change your mind after an on-pitch review request for VAR? And of course,
the instructions for VAR are quite clear, and that is, only the bar has set, I take it you work on the same bar in the English Premier League, they work in UEFA, and that bar is extremely high. And that bar says that only if VAR shows you something which you haven't seen or is a quite clear mistake. So the basic instinct question is actually maybe a wee bit irrelevant, but just give us an insight in terms of how you operate VAR. You've made a non-field decision. When would you change that decision?
I'll be honest with you, Trev, that probably changes through your career as a referee as well, I think. So as a first year referee making my way on this list, the majority of people I'm working with as a VAR, when they're my VAR and I'm on field, they've got a lot more experience than me in that level of football. They've earned that right. And I think if they're sending me over to the screen to show me something, they're sending me over for a good reason, because they've seen it 15, 20 times probably in slow motion from every angle possible. And they're sending me across because they categorically believe it's incorrect and they think it's clearly and obviously wrong. So for me, I'm probably 99.9% of the time I'm going to go with them, because I've got to trust that they've got my best interests at heart. We're all one team. We're the 21st team in the Premier League. And I think if my mate's sending me across to say, you've got this wrong, I've got to trust and believe that what they're showing me is that. And I think it takes something really, really categorically mental probably for me to go across and look at the screen and think, no, I'm sticking with what I've already give, because I've seen it once in full speed and they've seen it 20 times. And I'd back someone that's seen it 20 times over me watching it once at any point.
So did the question from Elliot there, that's typical Eddie. Elliot, see you, can't take you anywhere. Did Sean Dyche offer you for a pint after the Leeds game?
We had a discussion, shall we say, Trev, post-match.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. We're Charter House rules here. Okay, look, there's a lot of, as you were sort of going through a lot of things there, Rob, there's a lot of very, very positive feedback. So thank you very much for your presentation. And what's really, really good about it, it just consolidates, the various webinars we've had before. So I'm going to just summarize and close what's key for me. And of course, what I would encourage everyone to do, and maybe some people who sent their apologies tonight, is this is in our library now. This is there for recording. You can have another look at it as well. But this is what I'm taking out of it. What you've said is if you make a decision, it's not a mistake, it's experience. That's brilliant. I agree with that. So you talked about 3 types of decisions: statutory decisions, it's direct free kick or an indirect free kick, interpretive decisions, and then you talked about impossible decisions, and those impossible decisions are probably informed by your feel of your game, your experience, etc. What you've touched on, and it's been current throughout everything we have done in this series, is you need to know the laws of the game and you need to be fit. That's an absolute paramount. We talk about it all the time, but you have actually consolidated again: control the controllables, staying the present, create time. Tamara talked about that. Don't guess. You need to be 100% sure on what you're looking at. Don't go down rabbit holes by actually thinking about how cold or how warm it is. Just focus on your decision. Angle is the biggest thing, not proximity. I totally agree with that. Because I've seen referees almost doing 5K in 16 minutes, but they get in the right spot but make the wrong decision. So that's really, really important.